You remember who you used to be, not a version of yourself from childhood, not a distant, unrecognizable past, a version of you from maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5. Someone who was still becoming something, still changing, still surprising themselves. And somewhere between then and now, that stopped. You didn't notice when it happened. There was no moment, no decision, just a gradual settling, a quiet hardening into the person you are now. The same opinions, the same reactions, the same fears, the same ceiling on what you believe is possible for you. And the part that should unsettle you most isn't that it happened. It's that you probably think you're still changing, that you're still open, still growing, still becoming. But neuroscience has a very specific answer for what actually happens to a brain that stops encountering genuine novelty. And the answer is not what most people expect, because it isn't gradual decline, it isn't age, it isn't circumstance. It's a lock. Your brain has a property called neuroplasticity, the ability to physically rewire itself, to form new connections, prune old ones, and restructure how it processes the world based on new experience. In childhood and adolescence, neuroplasticity is extraordinary. The brain is almost liquid. New languages, new skills, new beliefs, new identities, all absorbed with almost no resistance. A child can become a completely different person in a single year. In your 20s, plasticity begins to decline, not dramatically, gradually. The brain is still highly malleable, but it requires more repetition, more intensity, more deliberate effort to rewire. By your late 20s and early 30s, something more specific happens. The brain begins consolidating. It takes the neural pathways that have been used most frequently, your habitual thoughts, your default reactions, your established beliefs, and it strengthens them, makes them faster, more automatic, more efficient. And the pathways that haven't been used, it prunes them, quietly, without asking. This is called synaptic pruning, and it is the neuroscience of becoming fixed. Your brain isn't deteriorating, it's optimizing. It's building a faster, more efficient version of exactly who you already are. And in doing so, it's making it harder to become anyone else. But here's where it gets stranger. It's not just your neural architecture that locks. Your social world locks with it. Research on friendship formation across the lifespan shows something stark. Most people make the majority of their close friendships before age 25. After that, the rate of forming genuinely new, close relationships drops dramatically, and keeps dropping with each decade. This matters more than it sounds, because the people around you are one of the most powerful forces shaping who you become. New people bring new perspectives, new challenges, new mirrors that show you parts of yourself you didn't know existed. When your social world stops expanding, your identity stops being challenged, and an identity that isn't challenged doesn't change. The same conversations, the same references, the same group that already knows exactly who you are and confirms it back to you every time you meet. Comfortable, familiar, and quietly calcifying. Now here's the third layer, and this one connects directly to the last video. Remember dopamine and novelty? How children experience almost everything as new, and their dopamine systems fire constantly, creating dense, vivid memories and stretching time. The same mechanism drives personal growth. When you encounter something genuinely new, a new idea that challenges what you believe, a new skill that exposes what you can't do yet, a new person who sees the world differently, dopamine fires. And that dopamine doesn't just feel good. It signals to the brain, update, revise. This matters. That signal is what drives identity evolution. It's what makes you reconsider a belief you've held for years. What makes you realize you were wrong about something. What makes you become, slowly, someone slightly different from who you were. But as novelty decreases, as the world becomes more predictable, more routine, more confirming of what you already think, that dopamine signal quiets. And without the signal, the brain stops updating. Not because it can't, because it isn't being asked to. Here's the part of this that most people find genuinely uncomfortable. The beliefs you hold most confidently right now, about who you are, what you're capable of, what kind of person you are, what you deserve. Most of them were formed before your brain had finished developing, before you had enough life experience to stress test them, before you knew what you didn't know. And now those beliefs are running on hardware that has optimized specifically to preserve and confirm them. Your brain is not neutrally evaluating who you are. It is actively defending the version of you it already built. Psychologists call this Identity Protective Cognition, the tendency to unconsciously reject information that threatens your existing self-concept, not because you're closed-minded, because the brain is doing exactly what a well-optimized system does, protecting its own architecture. Which means the version of you that exists right now is being actively defended against the version of you that could exist next. Now here's what the research says about breaking the lock. And it starts with something that sounds almost too simple to be true. Neuroplasticity never fully disappears. Your brain never becomes completely fixed. Studies of adults who learn new languages, new instruments, new physical skills well into their 50s and 60s show measurable structural changes in the brain. New connections forming, existing pathways rewiring. The plasticity is still there. It just requires more to activate it. More novelty, more discomfort, more deliberate exposure to ideas and people and experiences that challenge the architecture your brain has been quietly building for decades. The research points to 3 specific conditions that reactivate plasticity in adult brains: intense focus on genuinely new skills, deep relationships with people who are meaningfully different from you, and repeated voluntary exposure to discomfort. Doing things that feel wrong or hard or unfamiliar specifically because they feel that way. Not because discomfort is virtuous, because discomfort is the signal that the brain is being asked to update, and without that signal, it won't. But here's what I keep coming back to. Most people won't do any of this, not because they're lazy, not because they don't care about growth, but because the brain that would need to change is the same brain deciding whether or not to change. And that brain has spent years optimizing specifically to stay exactly as it is. The system is self-sealing. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago, but you are probably closer to that person than you think, and you are probably further from who you could still become than you're comfortable admitting. The lock is real. The neuroscience is clear, but the lock was never permanent. The question isn't whether you can still become someone new. The question is whether the person you are right now will let you. If that question landed somewhere uncomfortable, like and subscribe. New video every week. And as always, go beyond theory.